which were their military tribunals back then. So they had suffered those abuses. And to prevent that from ever happening again, Article 3, Section 2 mandates that all crimes must be tried by jury, and then Article 3, Section 3 defines the crime of treason and tells you exactly what must be done, and it provides additional procedural protections. And this is what's being violated right now by the president and also by Congress and also by the courts. The U.S. Supreme Court, unfortunately, in 1942, threw the Bill of Rights in the trash can and authorized military trial of a U.S. citizen. That is the precedent they've grabbed a hold of now and are using today. And a modern Supreme Court in 2004, in the Hamdi case, the case of a U.S. citizen being detained, reaffirmed and grabbed that old World War II precedent. It's totally illegitimate. It directly violates the Treason Clause, and it violates the rest of the Bill of Rights, the Fourth, Fifth, Sixth Amendments. You have a right to a grand jury indictment. You have a right to a jury trial in the state in which the crime is alleged to have been committed. And Justice Scalia, in his dissent in Hamdi, is spot on. He said, this is ridiculous. You're directly violating the Treason Clause. You're violating the Constitution. What you're doing is not under the Constitution. It's illegitimate, and that's why he dissented. And so what's going on right now is that everything the founders put in place, everything your forefathers bled and fought and died for, and everything they put in the Bill of Rights to make sure that the government could not escape the chains of the Constitution, that's all being turned on its head, as though we were in Nazi Germany or Stalinist Russia. The same thing our forefathers fought against, fascism, is now on our shores and being imposed upon us by domestic enemies of our Constitution. And the message to all the military out there is that, just like I did when I served as a young paratrooper, whatever your branch is, when you swore that oath to support and defend the Constitution, it was against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And the founders put that requirement of that oath in the Constitution itself in Article 6. They mandated that you must take an oath, and everyone must take an oath. Every person in the branch in the government takes an oath. Unfortunately, all three branches now have directly violated their oath. They are oath breakers. They are violating the Constitution. And frankly, what they're doing is treason against the Constitution, because they are making war on the American people. There is no power. Nowhere in the Constitution is Congress given the authority and the power to declare war on the American people or to wage war on the American people. And quite the opposite. There's a separation between what can be done to a foreign enemy and what can be done to us. That is now being torn down. You must defend it. This is your test. If you do not stand up and defend the Constitution, if you do not refuse any such orders and be prepared to defend the rights of the people, if you don't do that, then what you will have become is an oath breaker and a traitor to your country. And God have mercy on your soul, because an oath is a sacred obligation under God that you will do as you said you would. It's a promise. And everything your forefathers fought and died for will have been destroyed. I know a World War II veteran who's 101st Airborne. He fought at the Battle of the Bulge. He's 91 years old. And I talked to him the other day, and he is angry at the fact that everything he fought against, that he went overseas along with his brothers to go fight against fascism, and now he sees it happening here. And so if you let this come to America and you let it happen on your watch, then you might as well go down to Arlington and spit on the graves of every war dead in this country's history from 1775 on will have been for nothing if you let this happen. So you have to do what you swore you would do. You have to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. You have to have the same courage you would have in combat. You're willing to go and fight and die, like I was when I served, and as I still am right now as a veteran. You have to have the same dedication and willingness to give your life in defense of the Constitution as you would in defense of your buddies in combat. It's the same thing. And as a veteran, I got to tell you that you will not just slide into the Fourth Reich, because us veterans will not let that happen. We will resist, and if it comes to it, we will fight. We will exhaust, like our forefathers, we will exhaust all peaceful remedies to defend our rights. But if pushed up against the wall in the same way the founders were, with a long train of abuses, which is what's happening now, we will fight also. And so that's our message from the veterans to the current serving, is that you will have to kill us all. There are 25 million veterans in this country, and if you violate your oath and attempt to detain American citizens or apply the laws of war, including just killing us, if you try to do that, we will fight.
Stuart,
you'll have to kill us all.
Very powerful, Stuart. I just want to add a caveat here that humans, as we pointed out today on the radio, we go through the same cycles. Doesn't matter what color, what culture. Humans are humans. We do the same stuff over and over again. Every historian, every anthropologist, every sociologist, I got chills just now, admits we're going into a very decadent cycle. The whole world, top universities recognize America is becoming fascistic. The NDAA does do what we say it does, even though there's these denials, because they want to have these powers, but they don't want to admit it so we can have a political fight over it. They want to stealthily implement this. And I get so many emails and calls and comments on the street of, well, what can we do? Or, well, I have nothing to hide. Okay, it's a tyranny, but I'm not fighting against it. A tyranny is like a lion eating gazelles. It's eating gazelles because that's what it does. Like a gazelle doesn't say, well, I'm a friendly little gazelle, so the lion isn't going to try to eat me. This is what tyrannies do. And you notice they're taking the military death benefits through fraud. They're stealing houses that people paid for through fraud, the big banks. The government's caught laundering drug money and shipping drugs in and shipping guns into Mexico to blame the Second Amendment. And the proofs of it, of the corruption, it's luminous. Special interests came in, took over the government, and are doing whatever they want. That's tyranny. And we have let it happen. And now we're so far down the line, the criminals know we're waking up, so they're trying to pass laws to declare people that are standing up for freedom and common sense and due process as the terrorist. And we have all their training manuals. So people have to understand, tyrannies will reduce us to despotism. They will reduce us to poverty like a third world country, because that's the nature of what these people do. And their fruits are bondage and servitude and pain and poverty. And we've got to turn this around now. And I'd like you to speak to the point, to get your perspective and see if you agree, that we fought NDAA, but as you and others have pointed out, they were already implementing this stuff. Now the fact that it's so naked is really sending out a clarion call. And a lot of people who are on the fence, I'm heartened to see, aren't groveling in fear. They're seeing the illegitimacy of this. They're seeing the enemy fly their Jolly Roger openly. It's piratical. It's openly criminal. And so now the choice is so clear.
That's right. The choice is in front of you. It's so plain, and it is building on what two administrations have already claimed and have already done. President Bush detained 2 American citizens as unlawful combatants. Obama has done it even better by killing American citizens, and their claim is they can do that at will to any American. And just by designating you on their say-so alone as an unlawful combatant, now you're in the military system. You want to challenge that designation, it'll be a military judge that will determine your status. That's what the NDAA says in Section 1024. It says that determinations of status shall be done by a military judge, not a grand jury, not a jury of your peers in front of a civilian court, but a military judge. That's totally illegitimate. So it's in your face that the time is right now. You do not have the option of deferring to some future point your decision. You need to decide right now which side you're on. Either you're on the side of liberty, for which this country was founded. The whole point of America is freedom. As our Declaration of Independence says, the only justifiable purpose for government is to secure our natural God-given rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And whensoever any government violates those ends, it becomes illegitimate, and we have a right to throw it off. And that's why our founders rebelled. And so we're in the same position now. We have a very narrow window of opportunity to fix this by peaceful political means, through nullification as individuals, as towns, counties, and states, and also by the military nullifying. sheriff's departments and military must nullify and refuse. And while we're at it, sweep all of these oath breakers out of office. But if that fails, then the only last remedy we will have is if the U.S. military refuses and does a mass stand down, like what happened in 1989 East Germany. And message to the military is, if the East Germans can do it, a bunch of guys who grew up first under fascism, under Nazis, and then they grew up under communists, if they could do what was right in 1989 when the wall fell by refusing to fire on their own citizens, then you can do what's right. All you have to do is remember your oath and read the Constitution, read the very plain text of Article 3 and the Bill of Rights, and then do what's right. You already swore the oath. You long ago lost the option of ducking out and just following orders. If you do so, like I said before, you will be spitting on the graves of all of our war dead, and you and your children, you'll be leaving your children to tyranny, to darkness.
You're right. Well, that's the thing about tyranny historically. You're a historian and somebody who's written, award-winning papers on it, but the general public who hasn't looked at it, I challenge them to. Not only is it riveting and entertaining, it's humans act the same. We have the same life cycles, live the same amount, act the same, do the same cycles. History does repeat. And you better learn it or you're doomed to repeat it. And folks, it's bloody. And when you look at what's being set up, they're not setting a tyranny up just because they want all this power. They're doing it because they want to make us slaves. They're doing it because they enjoy it. And, you look at the East Germans, they had lived under absolute war and such tyranny that it was so austere and so Spartan, they were clear-minded and started to see what was happening. As, the East German former officer was part of the stand down, the colonel you helped us get on, pointed out, they went from absolute tyranny at the end of World War II to people slowly demanding rights. He says America's going from incredible liberty sliding in the opposite direction. And so we've got the entertainment, the football games, the hot wings, all of this wrapping paper that makes it look sparkly and nice, but under it is classical tyranny, whereas they were so Spartan they could really see it. And I think that's the disadvantage we've got, is that the mind control now used in America is so sophisticated. How do you break through that, Stuart, A? And B, why should we be concerned they're setting up a tyranny? What do governments always do when they set this up?
Well, as founding father George Mason said, a frequent recurrence to fundamental principles is what must be done to preserve liberty. And the founding generation rebelled not just against what was happening to them, but also against the claimed power. They didn't wait for it to get to its logical conclusion and to be used in the broadest sense. They rebelled against the principle, the claim that they could rule over them in all cases whatsoever, the claim that they could set aside jury trial and try them in front of a court of admiralty. They rebelled long before they felt the full effects. Because
they were historians and were into research. They knew every time tyrants declare a tyranny, they intend to use it.
Right. As Patrick Henry said, what purpose does this martial array have? It's meant for us. The chains they're forging are meant for us. They can be for no other. They understood human history. They had seen the history of the Star Chamber in England, where you had secret trials with secret evidence and torture and coerced confessions. They understood all of that. They understood the reason why 600 years of struggle to establish the right to jury trial and the right of habeas corpus. They understood that history, and they knew that tyrants would always, or willful men of power, would always be tempted to throw away any restraints on their power and to use that power in a willful manner against anyone who opposed them. They had seen it throughout history over and over.
And let's be clear,
Greece on.
All over the world, the Magna Carta and U.S. model of juries and due process, that has become the model. And now America, where it all really crystallized, is becoming the model of torture and secret arrest. I mean, it is a total reversal of what we stand for. I mean, the Bill of Rights, Constitution, Declaration of Independence, common law is the republic, is what made us different, not perfect, but because we never implemented it fully, but better than all the others. And whereas other parts of the world are moving towards liberty, we are plunging like a falling star into the black hole abyss of despotism. How do we reverse it?
Well, just by realizing that we are the defenders of Western civilization, and our Bill of Rights is the crown jewel of our republic, and it is the cornerstone of our republic.